On the air. This is the Village Council meeting for Tuesday, January 8th, 2019. If you could please stand with me and say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then remain standing afterwards because we have an invocation from Deacon Pete Duvall from St. Therese Catholic Church. So we'll go ahead and say the pledge and the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Heavenly Father, as we gather this evening for the Village of Wellington Council meeting, let us keep in mind that you created all people in your image and likeness. Open our eyes to the strength of your love for all people. Open our minds to your intervention in every pressing human situation and social issue. Give us the humility and discernment to enter into your love, mercy, justice, and patience for all humanity. Open our hearts to your compassionate understanding. Show us where to begin, and remain with us as we do the work of governing this community. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Okay. Mr. Schofield, if you
That will
could.
bring us to the approval of, I've turned that on before they rush out and tell me. To the approval of the agenda. There are two changes that you know about. We would like to add a presentation of the Wellington Community Foundation, a special population program scholarship to presentations and proclamations as item 5A. We would also like to move consent item 6J, authorization to award a contract for Binks Point Pathway Project, from the consent agenda to item 8B. And then I do have a speaker card request from Deputy Poritz, who has an invitation for you. If the council is amenable, I'd like to add that as presentations and proclamations item B.
Absolutely. I can't wait to find out what he's got for us.
It's usually entertaining with Deputy Poritz.
Okay. Very good.
And with
Is there
that,
a motion
staff
on these?
recommends approval.
On the agenda?
to approve.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes unanimously. That brings us to
Presentation of the Wellington Community Foundation for a special populations scholarship, and I believe Mayor Woodham is here, and Mr. Sackett. There are several members of the Wellington Community Foundation. And Mr. Barnes, are you here to?
I'll just start things off, and we're going to turn it over to our guests. Good evening. This item, as we discussed yesterday, is the culmination of some effort with staff and the Community Foundation, the Wellington Community High School, and Vince Ramos Writing Center to try and develop a special population, special needs programming that we've been trying to do over the years, and at this point figured we'd start with what we know, which is, you know, the schools in our community. So we partnered with Wellington High School to look at a program that we could do for their portion of their special population student body. And we've come up with a solution with the Vince Ramos Writing Center, and as such presented it to the Wellington Community Foundation, who very kindly and generously came to the table with funding for approximately 60 students in this school year. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Wyndham to give us a little background and on the item that they have. And then we also have Ms. Kara Hayden from Wellington Community High School, Suzanne Pollard from Wellington Community High School, and Susan Guinan from the Vince Ramos Writing Center.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Village Council members, and executive staff. Jim just, he read my speech before I got up here, so he went through the whole thing.
He does that a lot.
yes.
He does that all the time, I know. The Wellington Community Foundation board members, Jim Sackett is here. I don't see any other members, but Jim and I are on the board, and the others just couldn't make it. Present this evening to present a $12,000 check. There it is. There's the check. To the Village of Wellington as part of the Wellington Community Foundation's ongoing involvement with seniors, veterans, and children. This check, as Jim said, will assist 60 special needs Wellington children from Wellington High School to be part of the Vince Ramos Riding Program in 2019. This partnership with the Village of Wellington, Palm Beach County School District, Wellington Community Foundation, and Vince Ramos speaks volumes about what can be accomplished when civic-minded people work together for the benefit of those in need. The Wellington Community Foundation looks forward to working with other Wellington organizations to benefit Wellington residents. Jim said I could have 45 minutes, but I knew that wouldn't go over well, having sat up there with you folks, wouldn't go over well. But we discussed this at 2 board meetings. This was unanimously, after Jim came out, gave us the background, and Ms. Ginnon came out and spoke to us. It was only a matter of fact of when were we going to do it. That was the feeling of the Community Foundation Board. So we are here to present a check to the mayor.
I noticed you brought a real check, not one of those big cardboard checks. Oh, okay. There we go. All right. We have the photo check also.
Well, we're ready to present the check to you for $12,000, dated today. I signed it, and it's been okayed by Jim, too. So we're all set. Excuse me?
Is it going to clear?
If we could, before the presentation of the check, if we could have Wellington High School come up and say a few words, as well as the Vince Ramos Writing Center, that'd be great. Thank you.
They both work, both podiums, if you want to go to...
We could.
Okay.
Or we could stick together.
Oh, you can, either way.
Hi, I just really want to thank the Wellington Community Foundation in their generous donation in combined with the Wellington Village of Wellington to give us this money so that we would have this awesome opportunity for our ESE students. I know that on the Vince Ramos webpage, they have a saying that they say ability over disability, and this will really allow our students to show their ability over their disability and also allow them to show their potential. So I just really can't thank you enough. It's really an awesome opportunity for our students. Thank you.
I just have to ditto what she said. We are just so excited. Thank you so much for everything you're doing for our kids and for the community. It's going to be a wonderful and innovative opportunity, and we're just so excited. So thank you so much.
Excellent.
Glad to be part of it with you folks.
Are you also using volunteers from the school to work with the other schools? Are we doing any kind of buddy system along the way, or am I throwing a question out that no one knows yet?
That'll be something that somebody from Vince Ramos could answer a little bit more
Okay,
closely.
okay. All right, thank you. Susan and Ruth, you guys could double team it too.
We do that anyway.
I know.
So first, I'd like to say good evening and thank you so very much for having us here tonight. Mayor Wenham, Mr. Sackett, thank you so very much to you and to all the other members of the Wellington Community Foundation for the opportunity to create impact in our community, thanks to your generosity. This is Ruth Menner. And Ruth is the founder of Vince Ramos, and she has been making these opportunities available for individuals with disabilities in our community for the last 37 years. So she is an expert in finding those abilities and uncovering the potential in individuals with disabilities. So we're very, very excited to bring equestrian sport and those opportunities to our children, as it's so very much a part of our community already. So thank you again for your generosity, and thank you for seeing the potential in Vince Ramos and our children.
Do you have anything to add, Ruth?
No, it's an exciting opportunity for us to partner with the schools. That's been, such a valuable aspect to, much of our programming, because there are so many parents who, can't get their children to us individually. So to be able to offer this opportunity for the children through the school is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. It's amazing work that you do over there. If anyone hasn't been there to see it, I know originally it was physical disabilities mostly that you helped with, allowing someone who has never had purposeful motion besides a wheelchair to sit on a horse and have motion that feels like you and I are able to do walking around is an amazing experience. So I think that's where it started. But since then, it's been expanded to all kinds of different emotional disabilities. And you even have able-bodied kid camp where like
Another partnership that we have with the Village of Wellington.
and my son was very resistant to any kind of thing that did any movement. And after a summer, just a week that I won at auction, it made a great difference, even with an able-bodied kid who just didn't do motion, didn't do any of that. So it's really an amazing place, and it meets a lot of needs. So if anyone has not been there, they really should get
We'd like
by.
to make that invitation to
We'd
any
also
of
like
who
you to come into the village. We'd also like to jump over the annexation plans or something. Yeah, because we consider you, I think originally you were in the village, but weren't you first off of 50th or in the old days off of?
We had a borrowed facility.
Okay.
Temporarily, yes.
So either way, we consider you part of our village. Just, I don't know if the county, unincorporated county can get ruffled about that.
suburb.
You are a Wellington suburb, very much so. Any other council comments before we do the pictures?
I actually do. This is so exciting for me because about a year ago, I reached out to Susan, or she reached out to me, I can't remember which, and Ruth, and we talked about it. And it's not new. Okehili does this program, and so I thought we really, really needed to have this here in Wellington since we're an equestrian community. And former Mayor Wenham and I went out there with Mr. Barnes and saw firsthand the wonderful work that you all do daily. But the students, I mean, I just want to clarify, like, we were out there, and one of the students, you have a special lift that takes children out of a wheelchair and gets them on a horse. And when that child was on that horse out there, he was just, like part of his regular class. He was equal with all of his peers, and the joy and the smiles. It was really heartwarming to see that. And so you do amazing work, and this is going to really, really touch a lot of lives, help a lot of kids and parents. And so I can't thank you all enough for listening, and the village for pursuing, and everybody coming together for the donation. So I'm really looking forward to see how this takes off. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanya. Any other comments?
Yeah, this sort of seems like, I equate it to like being at a wedding and you see the couple and like, this is a great relationship. I feel good about this relationship. That's how I feel about this. This is a good match. Vincent Ramos and the Community Foundation is a good match, and now it's for the benefit of Wellington High. This is a win-win for the community. So kudos to you all, and we're really excited to see what you guys are going to accomplish together because sky's the limit. Great job.
Thank you again.
And the Wellington Community Foundation continues to impress with what they've done. And I remember when they were first founded, I don't think it was ever envisioned that you guys would have accomplished this much from the founding, really on not even with a real purpose at the time. And you guys have really hit the ground running, and you keep impressing us by doing more and more bigger and better things. So thank you for all you've done for the community. And I love the partnership with Ruth and Susan over there. And I know you'll keep doing more and more to impress us and benefit our community. So thank all of you.
And I think John has a few more words to say about the Community Foundation, don't you, John?
I certainly want to just say that I think that I echo all of the comments of my colleagues, and I want to thank the councilwoman for her leadership on this. But really, what I think is that this is what we envisioned. I think this is what we envisioned. This is what former Mayor Wenham, Mr. Sackett. This is the kind of partnerships and the kind of roles that I think the Community Foundation is looking for. And so I want to say that as someone who has said steadfastly on this dais that keeping the Community Foundation going because this is what they could be is absolutely so exciting. And it is something that I know you guys will continue to look for partnerships like this one to expand the role of what the Community Foundation can be in Wellington. So I thank you all for your efforts, for your leadership, for your fundraising. I thank you for what you do to change the lives of children every day, and I'm excited to see this sort of triangle between Vincent Ramos, the new leadership at the high school, and the ongoing visionary work of the Community Foundation coming together. So thank you so much, and we're excited to be here to see it.
And I think Dawn Rivera, aren't you on the board for the Community Foundation also? I'm not sure if she got mentioned, so even though she's here, she's working, but...
and James Cedar walked in.
Okay, and James is here also, so we didn't mention all the board members that were here, but it's exactly what we had envisioned when we turned it over and gave it the legs that you guys have really put under it. So thank you so much. Enough. Please.
I just want to follow up on what Councilwoman Siskin said. We were out there that day, and it was really unbelievable. A little boy, he had to be about 10, 12, something like that. Now, he could not move. He was confined. But they had a lift out there that picked him up and put him right on the horse. That's the part that really, really got to me. And this little boy just went around the rink that they have there, and he was part of the kids. I mean, even though he had these infirmities, he was part of the other kids. And he was doing just what they were doing. That hit me. And I got to tell you, we're glad to do this. I think I speak for Jim, and now John is here too, that this is money well spent giving back to our community to help these children that need it. We're fortunate that we in the mental health and physical health that we have, and to see these little kids out there, not little kids, but the children out there trying to make a go of it. And I mean, it was just, I couldn't believe it. So this is really a gift of the heart from all of us. And I know I speak for Jim, and I speak for John Cedar. But thank you very much for allowing us to be part of this. We look forward to any other challenges that might come along, too, that you might have, or any other things in the community. So I'm ready to give somebody a $12,000
All right, we're going to come down there and get it. That's right. You don't have to ask us.
On behalf of Ms. Quickle, I would say please accept that.
Okay.
Yes, certainly, yeah. Just don't take it to the bank. Go ahead.
I'm used to this. I got the
Well, thank you.
right there. Thank you so very much. Thank you. So nice to see you. Thank you so very much.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you so
Absolutely, it always does. What's the next vacation?
I'll send it to you tomorrow.
You're home for a while?
We're home for a while.
All right, we'll do you proud.
All right.
We will do you proud.
Thank you.
All right, yep,
Take care.
we'll do you proud.
You're out of here. We're going to stay and listen to what you're going to do about the grass.
Yeah, it's an E, not an A in Ramos. It's a Spanish word. It's not an A.
Yes, thank you.
It's all right.
You sounded out, it sounds like.
I know, but it's not spelled right. Okay. That's going to bring us to some other kind of interesting thing that Deputy Poritz has, right? That's our
Yes,
next.
that will bring us to Deputy Poritz's request.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. I appreciate the upgrade in the time slot. My reward loyalty points are stretching far, although I get long-winded sometimes, so maybe the 3-minute public comment section might have been better, but I'm going to try to be brief here. I want to cordially invite our council and Village of Wellington residents to our second annual A Day for Autism Building Bridges with Law Enforcement picnic. I'm going to show a clip here in a few seconds. Let me just give you a quick background. The event kind of is, it's a partnership between the Sheriff's Office, the Village of Wellington, headed by Michelle Garvey, FAU's Center for Autism and Related Disabilities, Allison, I'm going to butcher the name here, Bordeaux, who's a clinical support specialist with them. Allison had participated in another one of our events, and she had reached out to me about possibly putting something together for the Western communities with autism, because there really wasn't much out here. And I didn't really hear much after that. And then I get a phone call from Laura Aldrich to say, what is this possibility of an event? And through Councilman Napoleon kind of put all three together, and A Day for Autism was born. The concept behind it is far too often when law enforcement and even fire rescue respond to homes with a call dealing with an autistic child or adult, it's usually not for good reasons. So the concept behind this is, let's give the autism community a day to interact with law enforcement and fire rescue on a positive note, that maybe, just maybe, through the interaction, when we do respond to a home, they're going to recognize the uniform as something pleasant and something that they had a good time, and maybe, just maybe, that might be a trigger for them to kind of calm down, to allow us to be able to help out the situation without, negative results. So this year we're growing it a little bit bigger and better. I'm going to play last year's video. It's a 30-second clip, and then I'm going to go into what we have added.
Excellent.
Can we get somebody?
Yeah, we're glitching here.
So that was last year's. It was our first year doing it. We kind of got our feet wet. This year we have grown it. We have sponsorships. Our main sponsor I'm still courting right now, and hopefully I'll get an answer from them soon, and they're going to be covering the picnic aspect of it, the food, which is our biggest expense. We had Bolé last year, and we would like to have them again this year. It was a perfect fit with the fact that they're allergen friendly, healthy, and it seemed to work well with the autism community. We've added Little Smiles is going to be our sponsor for our Kids Zone, and we're going to have bounce houses, some interactive games. Joe DiMaggio's Children's Hospital is going to be our sponsor for our petting experience, and we're going to have a petting zoo. And then we also are going to have a mini Touch-a-Truck event, and that's sponsored by Duffy's Landscaping, and it's going to all interact with Sheriff's Office. We're going to have K9 out there, a mounted unit. We're going to have one of our monster trucks, little pockets of the Sheriff's Office that will kind of complement the event. Fire Rescue is going to have a bigger role this year, and they're going to be bringing some more other things. And we have anywhere from school board, police. They're going to be having a vendor table there. We've got a firm that does kind of like estate type things for anybody with autism. We're going to have drowning prevention there. We've got a young man that participated last year, Michael, who does his own artwork, and he's a child with autism. So it's going to be a wide range. We're still taking more applications for more sponsors. And So this year, we're going to be spreading our wings and inviting more of the community out there. The flyer is going to go live tomorrow. I've been kind of waiting for our last sponsor, but we're going to start pushing it out. Last year we had about 200 participants, and this year I hope to have anywhere from 300 to 500. By having this type of event, not only does it give the autism community to interact with law enforcement, but it gives law enforcement a chance to interact with the community. We're going to be doing arts and crafts. Deputies will be participating. The games they'll be participating. We'll be sitting down for the picnic and just getting to know our autism community.
What's the date?
The date is February 10th. Let me switch to the.
So we can get that on our calendars. Maybe you can give us assignments.
Here we go. All right. It's February 10th from 10 to 1. It's going to be over by the community center in the green lot. This is a great opportunity for our community to come out and also support those families dealing with somebody that has autism. This event is also a fun-filled day where no judgment. So families that can come out with, somebody, whether it's a child or adult with autism, and there's no judgment. We're there for a common goal and a common reason, and hopefully we can start breaking down some of those barriers and growing these two communities together, the law enforcement, fire rescue, and the autism community. So with that, I open up to questions.
Well, I think we were all there last year, I think, at one point or another in the day, and it was a really nice event. I don't know. The spectrum is so different. Who's going to be able to benefit from it? Not every child is going to be able to stand the sirens that we had going for a while, but it benefits some to see it so that they don't panic when it does happen. So it's hard to do this because you're dealing with an entire, each autistic child that I've known personally it's like writing a new book. It's completely different unto them. So hats off to you for providing this, and for the people and Councilman Napoleon for putting these people together and having this idea. So I'll do whatever I can be to be there.
Thank you.
I know you guys will too.
Absolutely.
Any comments or questions?
This was such a great event last year, and the partnership with PBSO and CARD to pull this off. It was such a benefit to the community, and I played a very small part in helping make this happen, and you guys did a great job, especially you, Deputy Ports. You just really took this on as your personal pet project, and it was such an amazing event last year, and I know it's going to be that much better this year because of the heart and soul you've put into this to make this event better, and I'm really looking forward to February 10th and having another fantastic community interaction day. So thank you for what you've done.
Very good. We'll see you there.
All right, that brings us to the consent agenda, and staff is recommending approval of the consent agenda as amended.
Move for approve. Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Consent agenda is approved. And there were no comments on the consent agenda?
There were no comments on the
Okay.
consent item, and I have no cards for input on comments on non-agenda items at this point. So that would bring us to the first item under public hearings, and that is
Ordinance number 2019-1.
yes, and I'm trying to get to it. Chabelle, you want to read that, please?
Ms. Newbin.
Ordinance number 2019-01, an ordinance of Wellington, Florida's Council amending Chapter 30, Article 2, Nuisance, Section 3053 and subsection 3054 of the Code of Ordinances of the Village of Wellington, Florida, to modify and clarify the specific regulations for the control of excessive growth of grass, weeds, and low-growing vegetation on undeveloped, partially developed properties, and on inactive or abandoned golf course properties, providing a conflicts clause, providing for codification, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date.
Very well.
Good evening. For the record, Bob Basehart, Planning, Zoning, Building Director. This is an amendment or amendments to Chapter 30 of the Code of Ordinances, which is generally referred to as the nuisance control section of the Code of Ordinances. And the amendments that are being proposed tonight are intended to improve the maintenance standards for properties that are vacant or abandoned, and developed properties as well. What we've done is as we have with a lot of the codes and ordinances that we've brought into you in the last couple of years, is trying to simplify them, to try to make them more understanding, a lot more clear. And we think we've done that with these amendments. We have strengthened the maintenance standard for properties that are now required under the current Code of Ordinances to maintain a 6-inch maximum height limit for 60 feet around the perimeter of the property. We've increased that to 120 feet. And there's also been some debate in months past over what the status of property is, whether it's developed or undeveloped. If something was used for something and it's not used that way anymore, is it undeveloped? So we've clarified that in the definitions. One of the issues has been golf courses, and we have specifically included provisions that relate to golf courses, although they always have been covered under the other provisions. Again, this is an attempt to clarify the requirements, and one of the things that we've done to make things easier to read and understand is we've put most of the standards into a table as opposed to text. So we've eliminated some text and shortened it. And essentially, that's the things that we've done. I would like to point out that, these amendments will apply village-wide to everybody. That includes the village. Village has property. K Park would be an example. It's leased now to a farmer, but should that lease end and the property become fallow, then these maintenance standards would apply to that property as well, and the village would be subject to maintaining the property as this code requires for everybody else.
It's 60 feet in from the right-of-way line.
60 feet in from the property line,
Right
whether
now,
it be
from the
right
property.
away.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's changing that to 120.
Yes, it is.
But right-of-ways that the village owns that are adjacent to undeveloped properties, the village maintains.
The village maintains the right-of-ways if they're
Right.
village right-of-ways, yes.
Okay.
Although,
And except for when they're incorporated into a lot, when you mow your property, you're mowing the swale. So, but where that hasn't happened, where vacant lots exist, the village maintains that area now.
Right.
Outside.
That's
But
right.
This is inside the properties and only affects properties greater than a half acre.
No, it affects all properties, but this actually, for properties that are less than a half acre, it would require the entire property to be maintained at 6 inches. If it's more than that, then it's for the first 120 feet around the perimeter.
Okay, very well. Is there any other part of the presentation, or are you done?
Unless you have questions.
Let me just say, Mr. Koch, then your office is going to then undertake to make sure that people are aware of this change and can come into compliance with it. I think we talked about that yesterday at the agenda review.
Yes, I mean, we have the lot owners who were originally maintaining the 60 feet. So we're gonna have to reach out to them, let them know that the code's changing to 120 feet.
And this takes 2 readings, so if we're assuming it passes tonight, it'll pass the next meeting, so that's 30 days already. Then people get time to get notice, and then if they have a problem, they'll get a notice, which gives them time to cure any problems.
Correct.
So, okay.
But developed properties have to be maintained the entire property?
the-
If they're developed? What's the difference between undeveloped and developed now? Or that we're coming into here? Because that was the question. Is a golf course that's not being maintained as a golf course, is it developed or undeveloped? We've maintained that it's developed because
yeah,
it's not
the
naturally occurring.
The definition of developed says if you've altered land or the configuration or the elevation of land that you've developed it. We've added some more clarifying language to it, so there's no question. And what we've done for golf courses is since golf courses basically are open spaces, they're not, they are developed property. And because of the nature of golf courses and their location generally adjacent to residential areas, this amendment will require it to be maintained at 6 inches in its entirety.
Okay, so the entire property would have to be maintained.
That's correct.
But that's what our code calls for now.
That's our
That's
interpretation.
been our interpretation of
That's
it.
right.
So that's not a revision.
No.
So this goes along with much of what we've been doing in regards to rewriting the code, which is to make it clear, make it simple, put it in a table, anybody can understand it, so that it's now not only an interpretation, but it's right there. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
Can developed property ever become undeveloped property, or once it's developed, you're always developed?
I think it's once property's developed, it's developed.
Okay.
And that includes a lake that you've dug and put on property, and that's part of development.
Yes, it is.
And we spoke about some adjacent lands yesterday in agenda review that would have this increased distance. They weren't a golf course, but they did have 60 feet from the perimeter that they were having to maintain at this level now. Now they're going to have 120.
That's correct.
And that was what we've called the FINA property or something.
And to give you an example of something that would apply to Wellington, a number of years ago, we took the 65-acre property we own on Stribling and we leased it to Alderman Farms. That is now developed property. Should Alderman Farms ever choose not to farm that property, we will be required to maintain it.
So the fact that it was farmed turns it into developed property.
The land has been altered and has been used, yes.
Okay.
And that's been clarified in the definitions.
Mr. Koch, yesterday you said how you notice people isn't changing, but you are going to reach out to let people know about the 120 from the 60.
Correct.
But how you go about notifying people isn't changing.
No.
Okay.
We need a public hearing on this?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Move to open public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. The public input, public hearing portion of this is now open. Do we have any comment cards?
We do.
2, 3.
We have 3.
And if anyone is here and would like to comment and haven't filled out a card, you may do so. You get 3 minutes if you fill out a card. So, name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Alexander Dom. My office address is 11199 Polo Club Road, and my home address is 10633 Versailles Boulevard in Wellington. I am an attorney, and I represent Palm Beach Polo, Inc. I represent Polo West Golf Club, Inc., two of the largest golf course owners within Wellington. I've reviewed, I guess, the basics of this ordinance. I come here today because it's kind of a shame that you wouldn't reach out to a golf course owner and ask perhaps in advance of drafting an ordinance that affects a golf course owner exactly what impact this may have. Using the words abandoned golf course, especially in the Wellington PUD, where the Wellington PUD provides that the golf course is open space recreation golf course, and from what we have all been told, can't be used for any other purpose. Golf course can't be abandoned because it's only a golf course. We were here 13 months ago asking you all for permission to use our land for something other than golf course, because golf courses are not that popular anymore. And certainly 18-hole golf courses are not that popular anymore. And we were summarily turned down at 3 o'clock in the morning. So here we are with the question now of what do we get to do with 300 or 450 acres of land where you are now determining that you're going to come out with a ruler and determine that we're more than 6 inches and we need to cut it or we need to do something with it. This doesn't make sense. And perhaps if you had asked us in advance, we might have been able to have some input into this process rather than 3 minutes. We're not abandoned and we may not be inactive, but inactive is a relative term. How do you determine an inactive golf course? Have you heard of links courses? Links courses where the grass grows higher than 1 inch, where it isn't perfectly manicured, where the roughs are, in fact, rough. These things developed in Scotland. We have argued this vociferously for the past several months, while you all have been using 7.3.12, a landscaping maintenance ordinance to determine what can and can't be done with the golf course, and how many weeds there are, and how tall is the grass, and these kinds of things. A golf course is a golf course, whether it's being used or not being used, and you can't simply determine that it can only be 6 inches or it can only be 1 inch, and you're going to come out and measure it. They're going to send code enforcement, and you're going to start enforcing this thing and say you have to go out and cut it to 6 inches. Makes absolutely no sense for somebody with 300 or 400 acres of land. And how do you determine in each portion of that land that, oh my goodness, the grass is more than 6 inches? So what we ask for is an opportunity to sit down with you all and to make a determination as to what we can and can't do with this land, and whether or not we can have an opportunity to, fix this or tweak it and define things a little bit better than they've been defined so far, and give us an opportunity to maybe, help with this rather than, be opposed to it.
You're over by a half a minute,
Then
Mr.
I'm done.
Dom.
Thank you.
But I appreciate you reaching out to us now. I mean, this is the first reading, so I'll make time to come by and talk to you about it if that's of any use, and I'll do that. And this is the first reading of it. If there's something that we're not considering that has value, thank you.
Thank you.
We have other cards.
We do. The next is Calvin Needrar. I'm sorry.
Nidrower, yes.
Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor Gerwig and
He even gave you
Council.
that, how to pronounce it. Thank you. Good to see you.
Sure that I'm.
Name and address.
Oh,
and
I'm
then-
sorry. Yes, Cal Nidrower, and I live at 1864 Lindsay Court, over by the high school, and my property is right next to the extreme northwest corner of the Polo West, what's called the Polo West Golf Course. Okay, I'm here because I want to voice support for the more restrictive nuisance ordinance, and I want to say it's not enough. I don't know. I'm an engineer. I'm a professional civil engineer. I'm used to be involved with solving problems, not complaining about things. But I don't see a lot of my fellow neighbors out here. But I know that there's a very strong opinion about the quality of life that's associated with what I just heard is a links course. Sir, there are not rats in a links course. Okay, I've been frustrated by years of degradation of that golf course since the economy tanked and the ownership changed. I play golf. I used to play the course when it was the Greenview Cove Country Club, and it was a nice course. It was kept nice. Rates were reasonable. It was convenient. It was in my backyard, and I played it. But I don't play the existing course. I've had difficulty over the last couple of years even in getting a tee time to play on the course. Because they don't often answer the phone. So anyway, it's I've got some prepared things I want to say here. I'll try to keep it really quick under the 3 minutes. But I do recommend including language that addresses the maintenance of the waterways. I haven't read all of the detail of the ordinance. I've only read what's in the agenda and what's on the webpage. But the waterway that separates my property from the golf course is a small lake with a narrow canal, And that has never really been kept nice since the ownership changed. The grass is often not cut there. It's very high. Woody vegetation is growing up around the perimeter of the lake, and there's a lot of emergent vegetation coming out of the waterway, a lot of cattail and a lot of water lily, and it's nasty. I've made several complaints and calls to the enforcement folks over time who've assured me they'd take care of it, but I've seen no action. It used to be when I made a call after living there since 2000 that action would happen quickly. And there was some controversy over whether the village owned the waterway or whether the golf course owned the waterway. I think that if it comes down to needing to actually change the ordinance or make it more clear, then you need to add waterways to it. I'd also recommend that enforcement be something that's strictly done. I think we all know that obstinate landowners don't have any regard at all for rules and regulations. I've seen that in the Wellington community. It's made me question whether I want to retire in Wellington or not. The enforcement isn't as timely as I would like to see it when we have folks that aren't taking care of
You're over by a half a minute also. I'm being fair.
I'm sorry. When we see folks that aren't taking care of their property, I mean, this is Wellington. I moved here for the quality of the village. And I would just like to see enforcement happen to try to help maintain
Mr. Niger, I'm going to ask you to sit down. Thank you. And we've been friends for years from baseball, and that's the only reason I knew how to say it. So thank you. Thank you for your
Thanks
input.
for the extra time. I appreciate it.
Next up is Glenn Jurgensen.
Good evening, Mayor, Council people. Thank you for the time. Glenn Jorgensen, 2327 Newberry Drive in Polo West. I just wanted to come up and say that I really appreciate you taking this action to start to develop some additional rules and regulations for developers who come in and purchase land and then they think that they can just avoid taking care of it. It's a disgrace. Polo West right now is a disgrace. It's been a disgrace for a little while as the grass has grown and grown higher. Who knows what's in those high grasses of probably over 1 foot right now. I know right next to my land, it's up to about 1 foot at least. So certainly it's something that I hope, and I agree with the gentleman that just spoke, I'd be a little tougher. I'd certainly make sure that the waterways are taken care of. I would certainly, 6 inches, fair. I'd go a little lower. But I would certainly make sure that it's done appropriately, timely, and not just let roll over. And if there is any fining that's appropriate, then I would increase fines and make sure fines are either accumulating over time or certainly required to be paid to the Village of Wellington. So thank you for the time. I certainly appreciate you taking the action and going through and making sure, and I will make sure for the second public hearing that more of my neighbors are out. I was very surprised not to see a few of them tonight, but I will make sure that more of my neighbors of Polo West are here. So thank you.
Thank you. We have more cards?
Yes, last is William McHugh.
Name and address, and then you get 3.5 minutes.
Greetings, council members and mayor. I'm William McHugh. I live on 11564 White Marsh Drive here in Wellington. And I'd like to say that I think most people already have said that they'd like the grass to be cut short. I don't know that that does represent everybody who lives next to the spaces that are affected. It may, it may not. I'm not suggesting that it does or does not. I'm just saying that it may or may not. I think Mr. Doom brought up some valid points. The property that I live on is Mr. Straub's golf course on the north course. And I've found personally, and I'm not endorsing that we leave it high, but I've found personally that when the grass is taller, as it is now, I don't get anybody cutting through my yard to wander back there. Nobody goes back there in their trucks or their motorcycles or anything else. And so there may be some people that have said and I've heard this, that some people actually like the grass a little bit taller. I'm non-committal. I don't want to piss anybody off, pardon my French there, by suggesting that I represent the public at all, saying that the grass would be nice if they let it be natural. I don't endorse that, and I don't condone it. But on the other hand, I think the council needs to look a little bit further in the second agenda and say, maybe there is some people that would like it to be a little bit more natural. One of the best things that could happen to that course, if you ask me, it would be a natural area with maybe somewhat maintained or a park or something. But that's going on to something else. And so I think it would be good if some places were cut, but I don't know that we have a blank statement. It's got to all be 6 inches. And so further investigation, in my view, would be by asking a lot more people what they actually think. I'm just suggesting that. That's all I have to say.
You don't have to take all the time. Thank you. We appreciate it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
We've had one more. Glenn Straub.
Mr. Straub. I'm trying to be fair and give everybody 3.5 because that's where I started. So
I just got out of court, which is obviously my day-to-day thing on
Name and
bankruptcy
address.
of our hotel. Glenn Straub, 11199 Polo Club Road, Wellington, Florida. And interesting, what is pretty to some people is not pretty to other people. I see waste management when I drive down the turnpike, and I see how beautiful a landfill is. And think what's in there. It's ugly. But you have to have these kind of things in a community. And when you don't ask us, which are the people that risked the money 27 years ago and is paid in excess of what we make on our property, over $2 million a year. That $2 million pays for a lot of things go on. So before jumping into something, please ask people when it affects them opposed to just doing an announcement. And luckily enough, we picked up on it and came over. So look at the golf courses that have been around for more than any other golf courses. It's been the links course. I spent $500,000 in the last 5 months upgrading a course that is very unique and is wanted by, we have people standing in line. We don't let very many people play on it, the uniqueness of it. So the same thing goes with beauty. Why some people like that golf course, we had another golf course and we changed the design to a links course to see if they liked links courses. Some people like trees and mountains and other people don't like them. How can you sit here and now say, well, that person that lives on the North Course wants this and he wants that? That's the drawback with this council. You take whatever someone calls on the telephone. Do some research before you just jump on something because you get yourself into lawsuits. And we're all comfortable with those kind of things. And the other thing is our membership is getting old. They can't afford to go out in 7,000 feet and play golf. A par 3, a miniature golf course. That's a golf course. Now you're going to change the name of golf courses? You're going to walk into something so bad, you're not going to win. It's going to get thrown back. So just ask. Equestrian, that's very popular right now. We've been in here and asked about equestrian uses. I would love to have a horse in my backyard that's maintained, groomed, and everything else, more than a golf course right now, because those golf courses, you can't afford to lose $2 million. I still got 30 seconds. Links course is where it's at. We didn't take and come up with that in 10 seconds. Links course have been around for 100 and some years. We got to let the property grow up to see which one's going to withstand temperatures changes. This is Florida. So only certain types of grass will grow to the heights that we need them for to be considered a links course. If not, we'll have to go back out and replant the whole facility, and it will not meet your ordinance even put brand new in. I'll take any questions if anybody wants them. To answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Straub. Any other comment cards?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to close the?
Move to close.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Are there any questions of staff? I know that I feel like we should explain the code enforcement process while we're here. Steve, if you could go into why it is a lengthy process. It does take a very long time.
Right. Well, the ultimate goal of code enforcement is compliance. We don't like to fine people, and the system is set up that way to give them every opportunity to comply. Wellington starts off with a courtesy letter, which is typically 30 days. If we don't have compliance with the courtesy letter, we go to the second notice of violation, notice of hearing, which actually goes out certified mail to meet the due process requirements. That's actually when the clock starts. If a person doesn't comply with the notice of violation, notice of hearing, which is also usually about 30 days for most violations, that's when they go to hearing. Magistrate, we present the case to the magistrate. The magistrate fines the person in violation. The magistrate gives them more time to comply. Typically,
Maybe.
it's another 30 days. If they don't comply with the magistrate order, that's when the fine starts. We'll have another hearing, give them another chance to present their information, and then the fines may start at that point.
And how much of that time is our purview to establish? How much of that is set up by state law, and how much can we say, enough of that, we're just going to cut this out? We're governed by state law in this regard.
You are
Correct.
Chapter 162 governs that process, and it is the code enforcement process is geared to protect the property owner. We do not have the ability to establish time frames that are separate and apart from what's in 162.
And that's not unique to Wellington.
That is every municipality and county in Florida. Where we have some leeway is whether we do a courtesy notice
Correct.
or not.
The first 30 days
Correct.
is...
That's not required by our code, but for most properties and practical purposes, we typically will issue a courtesy notice. We're not required to do so.
And the reason we stay with courtesy notice is we get about 90% compliance based on that first courtesy notice. They never have to get to hearing.
So the only thing that we could cut out in this process would be that first 30 days. And in fact, once a fine is certified and ongoing, that 30 days, from what I've seen the magistrate hearings, they usually say 5 years cease and desist, so that once you've done that and you've been actually not compliant, you don't get those 90 days again. So that's a one time at the beginning.
Right. Well,
And
what
we're
you have
doing-
is, right, the state statute permits us to have a 5-year cease and desist order. If the person re-violates the same code section within 5 years, they're a repeat violator, and we can take them straight for fining.
And they're not getting that notification after that. The 5 years
Correct.
is
Correct.
pretty standard.
But even at that point, we still reach out to them and ask them to comply
Try to
again
get
before we
compliance.
fine them. Right. We have a separate letter that we've sent. It's at discretion of the code officer.
I have a question. Someone spoke about maintenance of waterways. What governs the maintenance of waterways? Is that this code or a different provision?
This code governs it, yes.
Also, I believe that it's being addressed in Article 8 as well. But you may want to include the word waterways in the first reading of this ordinance. But I do know that Article 8 will address maintenance of waterways.
And who
as well.
owns these?
The other thing that happens in some subdivisions, which you will find, is that the village has rights of way for its canal systems through there, and in the development process, the canals were widened out into lakes. So where there is a right of way, the village maintains its right of ways. We do that in all cases. Where they are out beyond the right of ways, we do not do that because we are prohibited from spending public funds on private property.
We have modified the definition of developed property to include lakes, golf courses, sports fields. We can add waterways if you wish.
Is that your recommendation, Ms.
Yes,
Cohen?
I think so. Yes.
But it's not going to be a maximum grass height in a waterway. It's a different set of standards. So I'm wondering if the waterway portion is going to fall into a little, it's not going to be in necessarily this table, but it would be added in the documentation of what you can do, how you maintain the waterway. I mean, the
Well,
grass standard doesn't
Or
apply
water
to it.
bodies, yeah.
Water body.
Okay.
And Article 8 does have those provisions, but we can add some more language beyond definitions to...
They're there, and it would be my recommendation that if we're going to do that, then we pull the requirements out of the South Florida Water Management District standards, which are applied to everything that has a permit, and there is no part of the Wellington PUD or the landings at Wellington PUD that are not subject to those maintenance standards. So we, again, will not be applying a new standard. We will be simply restating what is already there and has been in place since 1978.
Okay. All right, well, that's something we can do between now and the next reading, and we can, what Mr. McHugh brought up was something that I discussed yesterday. Some people think when they're living next door to undeveloped property that it is a preserve and overgrown, and this might affect them. So hopefully people will speak up the next time, or we'll get some more public input. We have all email. People can let us know how they feel about it. We have time to take public input about that, because that was my concern too, is if we suddenly have you clearing further into your borders and people didn't expect that, it might look like development, and it's not, it's maintenance. And it may not make everyone happy, so.
Right, and one thing I want to thank staff for bringing this forward, because I think it's important to understand that if you own property in Wellington, you need to maintain that property in such a way so it doesn't create a nuisance or a health and safety issue to the neighboring people to that property. So, I mean, it's one thing to want to use your property the way you want to use it, but when that property impacts the people surrounding it, you have a duty to take care of it to make sure you are not impacting your neighbors. And I think this ordinance is a good step forward in accomplishing that, because we've heard a lot of complaints over the last, since I've been here, about unmaintained properties in different parts of the village. And I think this goes a long way towards addressing that. So I want to thank staff, and I want to thank everyone who came out tonight and commented on it.
Thank you.
I agree, and I think the fact that this simply codifies our interpretation, or the village's interpretation as it already has existed, combined with the fact that, as you've heard even from the speakers, some say it doesn't go far enough, some say it goes too far. I think we need to codify this and try it out for a while, and then we can come back and reassess it if need be.
Is there any procedure for buying property and saying, I don't intend to use it for any purpose, and turning it back into undeveloped? Is there any procedure for that?
Actually, you do have a procedure for that. You can go back in, and every piece of property within the PUDs are master planned. If it's master planned, and we will use the example we've used out here all night. Well, I'll change to a different one. I will change to K Park, since that is ours, and we are farming it. Should we choose?
We are not farming it. We are leasing it to a farm.
So it's being farmed, it's being actively farmed. Mm-hmm. If Alderman Farms decide they don't want to farm it, and then we decide that we don't want to keep it as, a grass field, we certainly have the ability to come back in, change the land use, convert it to a natural area. We could do that either as upland, or we could do what we did in the case of Section 24. Section 24 was an abandoned farm. It was overgrown. We have turned it into a functional wetland with native vegetation. Yes, you may certainly take a piece of property and change its use back to something if you wanted to create an upland, a natural.
But that would be sort of a development. It's not really undevelopment. It's a different development.
But it is.
But you could
certainly return it to its natural condition.
So you could have nice grassy areas that would be greater than 6 inches if your plan was approved as that.
Yes, and it would simply require a master. Just call it what it. You would call it what it is. If we turned it into a pine palmetto upland, then we would look for native Florida vegetation. There would be many grasses in there that are above 6 inches, but there's a management plan for it and a plan to call what it's there for, so that if it then became overgrown with melaleuca, we would have recourse to have it removed.
Okay. All right, very well. Is there any other questions or comments on this?
I think it makes everything clearer, and also it makes enforcement easier. Are we going to add the waterways language
for second
reading?
Water bodies, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Water bodies.
Okay.
You want a motion?
Yes, we need a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 2019-01.
I'll second.
With the addition of
the waterway language.
Water bodies language.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the consent agenda and to the regular agenda. And there are 2 items on the regular agenda, and those are items that require.
I need to recuse myself from this next one, but I have a question for council. Are the council members able to ask me any questions as a witness to any of this if they have questions about?
No,
There's
this is
nothing.
not a hearing of any sort.
We're not
But
going
I-
to swear the mayor in.
But since, well, no, I'm just saying it's kind of unusual. But if there were questions,
And I would advise you against being present in the room based on previous ethics opinions that
Okay,
have
so no
interpreted
matter
that.
what, there's no question or answer. It's yes or it's the
Correct.
presentation. Okay,
My
very
advice
well. Because this will benefit me personally, I'm recusing myself from this. And do I have to come back and recuse myself from the next vote, or can I do that also while I'm here?
You can do that now.
Okay, and the next item is a project award that has a sub-consultant on the list of working on this project. So that one I'll be recusing myself of because of my business has some outside interests, nothing to do with what's in front of this council, but I'm recusing myself based on the county code of ethics on that one. And this one I think is a state conflict. This one does meet the reimbursement question,
Yes.
meets the state code.
Yes.
The second one meets the county code. Yes.
Correct.
So, thank you.
So
Okay, this item is a request for reimbursement of legal fees incurred by Mayor Ann Gerwig relating to successful defense of an ethics complaint.
So there was an ethics complaint filed, two ethics complaints filed against the mayor back in 2015, one by the former mayor, Bob Margolis, and the other by Wellington resident Bart Novak. We had previously, prior to that time, adopted a policy that allows the council to reimburse a council member or board or committee member for fees, legal fees and costs incurred in successfully defending an ethics complaint. The policy requires a number of things, including that it be successfully defended, and that we submit for reimbursement first to the Florida League of Cities for reimbursement under our policy, which pays 50% of the fees incurred up to a certain amount. And that has all been done. And in your packet and in the supplement to your packet are notices that were required to be given, the fees that were incurred, the engagement letter with the Coates Law Firm who assisted with the defense, and I believe that you have everything necessary and required by the policy to be able to approve the request for reimbursement, and we are recommending that you approve the reimbursement. One of the things that was important to the council in adopting this policy is that they did not want the threat of an ethics complaint being filed against a public official to be a deterrent to people serving in public office or to have a chilling effect on people and preclude them from serving for fear of having to come out of their own pocket to defend these types of complaints. And so because this complaint, both complaints were found not to be meritorious, I think this is exactly the type of situation the policy was intended to address.
Ms. Cohen, does the mayor's request for reimbursement satisfies all the conditions of our policy for reimbursement?
Yes.
And half of her request was reimbursed by the insurance policy.
That's correct. A little more than half. The League of Cities paid $3,415.63. I'm not sure why they paid that extra, but they did. And so the balance is $3,334.37. The mayor has already paid for the legal fees, so the amount from FMIT has to be reimbursed to her in any circumstances. So what you're really deciding on is the balance of the $3,334.37 and whether you believe that she has satisfied the requirements of the policy. I believe she has, and I believe it should be reimbursed. And I think that the documentation is sufficient to satisfy our policy.
So
go ahead.
No,
Okay, and the FMIT policy used to reimburse 100%, but then they changed to only 50%.
Correct.
Which is why
Prior
we've stepped up to
to-
do the other 50.
I would say prior to 2014, the FMIT policy, the League of Cities policy, paid 100% for successfully defending up to $25,000 per incident. And because we had a number of claims that were paid, they changed that policy, and I believe they changed it not only for Wellington but statewide, and reduced that coverage to 50%. And so currently that is what our policy provides, a reimbursement up to 50%, up to a certain dollar level, which I believe is $25,000 per incident and $100,000 total in any given year.
So yesterday when we talked about this, it was explained to us that the amount that's been presented is $3,000 and
3334.37
was entirely devoted for legal fees. But the policy, or at least as I understand it, our policy is that costs are included as well. And so one of the questions that I had was, is the mayor going to submit
No.
reimbursement for the cost? Because as I understand it, this required 2 trips to Tallahassee.
It did, and she did incur personal expenses, costs, such as travel expenses and hotels and meals. She is not seeking reimbursement for that, and is only seeking reimbursement for the legal fees that she has already paid. And she stated that in her email that's in your packet, which is dated December 8th, 2018.
But our policy, the way it is written now,
If you
allows for that. It's in there.
Yes, I believe you can read it that way, that it allows for costs, not only court costs, but personal costs incurred to be reimbursed if the requesting party is actually requesting that reimbursement, which the mayor is not in this case.
And you may have said this already, but this reimbursement is only applicable if the applicant, or if the candidate prevails in the...
Correct.
And here there was a finding of no probable cause on every one of the complaints.
There was
So
no
she satisfies
probable
the
cause on
conditions.
any of the alleged violations.
I'm in favor of approving the request for reimbursement. I'll make that motion.
I second that motion.
Yeah, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Passes unanimously.
All right, the next item is authorization to award a contract for the Binks Point Pathway Project and approval of Resolution 2019-01, amending the fiscal year 2018-19 Road Impact Fund budget and Governmental Capital Fund budget to assign funds for the Binks Point Pathway Project and providing an effective date. The total cost of this project is $710,575. What this does is it completes the last portion of the pathway from Binks Forest Drive to Flying Cow, and it includes a bridge over the C8 canal. This is in the long-range capital project. The reason it wasn't budgeted this year, and as I've told you on numerous occasions, when you see a budget transfer, that means we hadn't planned to do this. But we are getting a $424,568 grant from the Florida Department of Transportation, and the village will be paying $286,007 for our component of it. Again, it is something that we had planned to do. We're moving it up because the money is available both in terms in the grant and in the roadway capital project. So we're recommending approval of this grant and the budget transfer.
So the total out-of-pocket to the village would be?
$286,007.50.
And that's the amount that we have to pay to complete the project and meet up with the FDOT contribution of $424,568. Is that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
And how long is this project anticipated to take to construct from the time we start?
From notice to proceed to substantial completion will be 90 days. We have an additional 30 days after the substantial completion that they do the punch list items. So a total of 120 days.
And to reconcile that with the number that you heard yesterday, this is a local area project, a LAP project funded by the Florida Department of Transportation. The LAP projects typically take months to finalize. Once the work is completed, we don't get the final lap certification for several months afterwards, which is the difference between construction time and final completion of the project is that DOT lap certification.
And so obviously, if we don't approve this expense now, we lose the grant, the $424,000 grant money.
That's correct. Basically, our commitment when we accepted the grant originally, which we had actually taken to council as well, was the commitment to not only plan, design, and construct the project. It included construction of the project. So, and it would probably also affect us in obtaining future grants from the DOT through the MPO.
Right. So we got the grant in 2016. We've gone through planning and design, and now we're ready to
construct.
Okay.
And that's a typical time frame for a lot of these grants, is usually minimum 3 years from award to at least the money actually being available. And this is one that actually was able to get started earlier.
And this is a good project. It helps connect the Bing's pathway to the section 24 for pedestrians and bikes and other things. So I think this is something that'll be much used and appreciated by the community. So
The complete loop from internal existing center of Wellington out to Flying Cow and all the way around you can get through on a pathway now. And allowing access to additionally to section 24 as well through Flying Cow.
But the loop that it completes is essentially from Bent Creek all the way south to Pearson Road and the C-23 canal. And it's a complete, and it's a multi-use pathway. Parts of it are even equestrian friendly. This part, however, we would discourage horses from being on.
Any other questions?
No. I'll move to approve the authorization to award the contract and approve resolution number R 2019-01.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, that brings
Thanks,
us to the end of the agenda and to the attorney's report. And Mr. Barnes, if you could ask the mayor to come back out, please.
She's coming. While the mayor is on her way back, I'll just say that I have nothing to report.
I hope you're not expecting the same from me, but I will be brief. The next regular council meeting will be held here on Tuesday, January the 22nd. The annual landowners meeting for the Acme Improvement District will be held immediately following the conclusion of the council meeting. Since the village offices will be closed on Monday, January the 21st, which is the normal day that we do agenda review in observance of the Martin Luther King holiday, the next agenda review meeting has been moved to 8:30 on Thursday, January the 17th. The next town center meeting will be scheduled for January 30th, starting at 6:30 p.m. at Village Park Gym to provide for more folks to participate. The next Lakeside Family Fun event will be held on Thursday, January 17th, starting at 4:30, and there is a free public art display of the Art of Florida's Highwaymen, which will be on exhibit at the Wellington Community Center from January 18th through January 29th, and that is one that I strongly encourage people to go to. The Florida Highwaymen were a group of artists who really did exactly what it says. They sold their art along the highways. They were predominantly African American artists. I actually, back in one of the brighter things that I did at my wife's insistence was back about 1973, buy a couple of pieces of those art, and they're really phenomenal art pieces, and they and the $25 that it cost me, they're worth way more.
Yeah,
than
they
that
were
today.
very, very inexpensive, and they would knock on the door of your business. They hit businesses, and they would knock on the door of the business, but it was incredible how inexpensive they were. And let me just say, they're not that inexpensive anymore, are they, Mr. Schofield? How much they are worth quite a bit of money now. But yeah, it was very quickly done art in a style that was very Florida. And for some reason, in the North End where I worked in Lake Park, I talked Ken Scrape into buying a couple pieces because the guy walked in and I said, "This stuff's nice, and you got to put something on the wall." And I kind of wonder where those pieces ended up because they're worth quite a bit of money now.
Again, it's probably the best investment of $25 that I ever made.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's just
okay.
Was that the rest of your
that makes me done.
Okay, very well. All right, I'm going to accept. Does someone want to go first? I always kind of start at one end or the other, but is there anybody that would like to go first?
I will, actually.
Okay,
Just a quick
very
question.
well.
There's
Okay.
walk and talk. Is there a Greenview Shores walk and talk with PBSO and the village? I had a transmittal on that. I didn't hear anything about that. Do you know?
I don't know. I
The
will
walk and
find
talk
out.
schedule?
Walk and talk schedule.
We will get the walk and talk schedule out to all of you.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to congratulate the Wellington Historical Society on a great New Year's Eve party, first time event, and they had a lot of people, and it was a great way to ring in the new year, so great job there.
Thank you.
And I hope everyone had a great new year.
A lot of good feedback about that holiday party. Everyone loved your New Year's Eve party.
It was a really nice event, and it was just done so well. I mean, you know, big shout out to Karen Kavanaugh, to Wellington the magazine, and the Town Crier for, you know, the coverage and all the assistance they gave us. I mean, it was
And
a great
Wellington
event.
National.
Wellington National Club, phenomenal. So.
I don't like lobster, so Mr. Gerwig really enjoyed it because he got 2 of them. So it's just not a me thing. So, but he said they were very good lobster.
The food was really good.
Really good. And congratulations, Madam Mayor, on becoming a grandmother.
Yes, it was a lot of work on my part. Actually, it has been a lot of work on my part since
a lot
then.
of work in the future.
Since the birth, it's been a lot of work on my part. But anyways, thank you. And your anniversary. So okay, we'll start on the ends and work our way to the middle. Councilman Napoleon.
No, I'll just wish everyone a happy new year and hope you have a safe and healthy and prosperous 2019.
Okay, very well.
I
Councilman
too
McGovern.
want to commend both of you on your anniversary and on the birth of your granddaughter. I have really got 3 quick points. First of all, I think that the equestrian and the winter season have begun, and traffic has certainly increased, and the number of people that are in all areas of our community has increased. And so I hope that everyone will just take a moment, take a deep breath, be patient, take your time, and remember that safety should be key throughout our community. I too want to wish everyone a happy new year, and then I want to remind everybody about 2 events. First, the manager mentioned the Lakeside Family Fun Day with the country western theme is going to be January 17th, so that's a weekday starting at 4:30. And then secondly, I just want to say that over the holiday, we lost a member of the PBSO family when the K9 Seago did its job and lost its life at the Wellington Mall on Christmas Eve. It was a tragedy, but it showed the tremendous service of that K9, and the memorial for K9 Seago is this Thursday at 10 a.m., and I hope that we will all be there, and I hope that much of the community will be there at the South Florida Fair at the I think it's the Cruzan Amphitheater. I'm not sure what we're calling it. Coral Sky is the correct name.
Somewhere on the
one of those.
property. Not sure if
At
it's
10
in the
o'clock.
amphitheater. It
That's
is?
where 10
Okay,
o'clock
very well.
At the Coral Sky Amphitheater at 10 o'clock this Thursday. Thank you.
And the public is invited to
Absolutely.
that? Okay, very good. Vice Mayor?
No, I'm just, I'll join Councilman Napoleon in wishing everybody a happy new year, and I'll wave today.
Very good. I just have a couple of items. Mr. Schofield, I'd asked, has everyone turned in the manager and the attorney's reports? Have those all been turned in?
I have gotten 2 more today, and as soon as we get the final one, I'll distribute the ones we have now.
Okay. Well, no, I'd like them all distributed together because I think it makes the most sense. But I was just asking if that had been done because it's part of our
All been completed.
fiscal year. Okay. Thank you. Another thing that I saw in the paper actually today, Corinne Ingerman, who the name kind of stood out to me, and I couldn't figure out why, but I read the obituary, and she actually was one of the founders of the Wellington Art Society and a member of our community for a very long time. So I wanted to acknowledge her passing and her contribution to Wellington and thank her family. They've made in her final wishes, contributions in her name made to either Temple Beth Torah or the Wellington Art Society Scholarship Fund. So I just would like to acknowledge hers. I did recognize the name, and I kind of couldn't figure out why until I made it all the way through. an amazing woman who spent a lifetime enriching people around her and a member of our community. So hopefully her memory is a good thing right now to her family. Also, coming up with the lakeside events, Mr. Schofield, we had talked about, are we ever going to charge for events? Because sometimes we charge for things at Village Park and we don't charge for others. And we had talked about starting the lakeside events and kicking them off as free. But is there any desire to make them sustainable by charging for wristbands or asking for fees for any of the activities that are provided? Or, I mean, this one is free.
They're looking at,
Okay.
looking at predominantly the rentals that we're covering the cost of now for things that, people are physically using and renting, which would be the paddle boards and kayaks and those types of things.
Maybe
But we
some
hadn't
nominal
looked-
fee or,
Yeah,
okay.
we had looked at going to things like the painting booths and things like that. We don't charge for those at any.
We do at Village Park when we do those events. The events we do over there, it's a wristband to play on the inflatables and that stuff. So
Mr. Barnes, I talked to him about that. He's coming up to tell you now.
So I'm just looking at it. We're paying about $7,000 or $8,000 for each time we do it. One of the questions that was asked in the survey is, would you pay for this event? And overwhelmingly, people said yes, they would pay for the event. So in the nature of continuing it more and expanding it, I'm asking if there's a desire to add a nominal fee to make it a sustainable event.
Yeah, at this point, just for some background, for the events at Village Park, mainly Fall Fest and July 4th, what we've utilized, particularly starting with Fall Fest, was a wristband process for all the bounce houses. Those are the only events that we actually charge for. Were for the bounce houses access to, whether they be the obstacle course bounce house, slides, what have you. The rest of the events are all free and through sponsorships and village funding. For the Lakeside Family Fun Days, we have not begun to collect anything yet, but you're correct. Overwhelmingly, I think all our surveys have indicated that people are willing to pay some kind of nominal charge for that. And I think at this point, staff's probably looking at trying to figure out at which point and which of those particular activities, whether it be the paddleboarding, kayaking concession, or whether it be some kind of nominal wristband charge for the rock wall and the other slide or bounce house that we have there, to see if there's some interest or desire there. At this point, the only thing that's charged is certainly any of the food is for pay, and there's no free food at the events, but the rest of the events
Right, they're
have been
food
free.
trucks like we
Right.
do at our other events.
Right.
And that's been used to offset the costs for the amphitheater programming. I'd asked Mr. Schofield to get me that data. How much of I know we don't give a huge amount of money for the programming at the amphitheater. A lot of it is covered from money that they bring in, I believe. So I've asked for that breakdown, because it's all on this site. So if we're doing food trucks and that's compensating for other things, that's fine too. I'm just looking for that mix that makes it a sustainable community idea. My other question was the green on
Green market?
The green market. We had moved the green market onto the green. How did that work out? Did they like it? Or
A couple different things. In discussions both with the organizers, POTTC, Pirates of the Treasure Coast, who we've contracted for the green market for the last 2 years, 2 seasons. In discussing it
so
with
do
them,
they pay us? Do we get money from the green
they
market?
do. Each vendor actually pays to be at the market,
Okay.
and a percentage of that goes to Pirates of the Treasure Coast for the organization and cost to run the market, and a portion of that goes to the village for fee that we collect for that. And I don't know the exact breakdown, but we can find that out. But basically, in discussions with organizers in advance of when we moved it, which was during coincident with the last Family Fun Day during the day, and also during that event and after the event, it's been mixed review. Organizers and several of the vendors love the location. A lot of the actual patrons love the location. I mean, just ecstatic about the location, thought it was great, either singularly or in conjunction with the actual Family Fun Day activity that was ongoing on the other side of the
I thought it kind of drew people back. Like if you saw the green market on the green, which is also quite a bit cooler, the green market on the pavement is significantly hot in certain days. So I thought, well, it's going to be cooler. It's going to draw them back to the lakeside. Did it
It
provide
did.
that?
I think we unfortunately had not great weather that morning.
Right.
I think that's probably an understatement. We had cloudy
That is an
weather. We had
understatement.
sprinkles. I'm glasses half full kind of guy, and we had some showers for a while, and then later on, I mean, it was great for me because I wasn't sweating, but it was still not great because some people decided maybe I'm not going to come out to the green market because it's inclement weather. So it's a tough measure. The other thing that in some cases, while the venue is a lot nicer, some of the actual vendors. It's going to take a little bit of time to get used to it, and they were actually since their numbers were so low. If you went to the green market this past weekend, we brought it back to the parking lot location because some of the vendors indicated that they actually preferred the parking lot location only because the prep time and
unloading their
teardown
cars
time
and
took a lot of time. And for some of the small businesses, their complaint was that, or their issue is that a lot of them are 1 or 2 people operations working the green market and sometimes something else later on that day, is that the amount of time that they would need to get there in advance and after just took a lot longer.
just
Now,
to move everything across a walkway.
as opposed to basically
Yeah.
at the other location, while not real aesthetic and not very pleasing to kind of the patron or even the customer, the vendor, it was easy. You pull your car up, it's generally behind the space in which your tent's located, so it makes for very easy setup and tear down. We're still looking at options. I mean, we did put staff together that was already here working the other event to assist them with tear down, and that went really fast. So I think we're still going to evaluate the ability to bring it back. The organizers thought the location was great. They actually said this is a great location. It's actually what a real green market's supposed to feel like. It's going to be
It's
a
different,
baby
too.
step process to get the vendors accustomed to that process, to get our staff set up so that we know what help they need, when they need it, and what support we can provide them, and make it a win-win for everybody, the customers, the vendors, and the village as well. But at this point, we'll be bringing it back to the green
to the parking
space
lot.
location.
Okay.
Well, we're going to the green space location when we have a daytime
I was going to
family
say
fun
art,
day, because I
when the
think there's
art
some
fest is going on, we could
Well,
still do the green
well,
market, which we couldn't do.
right, and I think there's still due to the activity for the art fest. I think that's one of the times when we actually don't have a green market scheduled, because in some cases, they decide that based on the activity there, and that not a lot of people will come out to the green market, and the vendors then are not happy. So we're trying to work with the vendors, similar to when some of the vendors might voice their complaints to some of the patrons, and then they come back to you guys when they say, "Hey, why are you guys closed between Christmas and New Year's?"
And we just heard that again.
Right, and we heard that again, and unfortunately, while there might be some individual vendors that want to be there, what we've seen in the last couple of seasons here, as well as other places from prior to the Treasure Coast, they've seen is that they can't get enough vendors to be present to make the market a market that people will want to come to, because there aren't that many vendors. So you might have a few that want to be here in that time frame because they want to be able to sell, but unfortunately we can't get enough of a critical mass of vendors to make the market a go for that area, so it just seems better for everybody to not be there. But we're going to keep looking at that issue as well.
Just keep an eye on how things are working.
Yeah, I thought aesthetically moving it over to the green space was a huge enhancement of the whole experience. And I think naturally people are going to be resistant to change, particularly the vendors. And so if we have staff who's able to sort of alleviate some of the anxiety over the change, that may help things. But ultimately, if it is a more inviting atmosphere, the public's going to want to come, particularly now when you open up the parking lot, there's a lot more spaces available to park. So just walking it, it seemed to me like this was a natural fit. Yeah. And we even talked while we were there about how we can continue to enhance that experience and add some more stuff to it.
Other activities.
Yeah, so I'd like for us to continue to make efforts to try and get our vendors to get on board with this. And I think ultimately, if they're more successful economically, they'll come around.
Well, I think we're gonna pray for some great weather during the next family fun day, and I think if we have
anytime we do something
concurrent
outside,
family fun day,
yeah.
green market on the green, and great weather, I think we're going to see that the vendors will notice a lot more activity, and with that more activity comes more purchases, which will be more money.
Yeah, and the setup really it promoted a lot more strolling. You spent a lot more time there than you can just, when it's in the parking lot, you can walk up and back and you're kind of done. It doesn't take long. This made it feel like a much bigger green market. And again, except for the weather that day, it was a much better feel. It felt like a lot more people were there. And some of the vendors did complain about having to move their stuff, but I saw staff helping them get their stuff over and back with the gators. Right. So they were really, staff, as always, is super accommodating and really help people get set up from the new space from where they're used to just dumping from their car take their stuff over in a gate or to the green lawn and set up and take down. And that was, so I'd like to see more events over there because I think that's a much more natural and pleasant place to have it than over in the parking lot.
Well, I think in discussions with the event organizers, we kind of brainstorm on some other event ideas for that location. So I think you'll be seeing some of that come to you soon as well.
Goat yoga, is that separate and apart from Fresh Market?
I'm sorry?
The goat yoga
That was
program.
part of the
that has
Lakeside.
No, well, what it was is that's something that we actually ran with a previous Family Fun Day on Saturday. And what we did is we figured that would be an event that would be connected to the Family Fun Day, but it would be co-located at the Green Market location. So we thought, again, trying to get a crossover.
Yeah, I thought that worked well, and that gets a pretty good turnout.
Well, it is pretty fun. I've never done yoga except for that one goat yoga experience, and I will say it was really quite fun. And some of us were really just trying to play with the goats because they're
I think
darn
it's a petting
cute.
zoo half the time. So,
Darn cute, but it actually did function in the yoga process amazingly. And I wanted to do it last time, but I couldn't because I was very sick that day. But yeah, the goat yoga, I think is not only is it unusual and sort of a photo op moment, it was really fun. So.
And even though the weather was bad, it was packed with the goat yoga. They had
we did have a lot of
participants.
So the goats
yoga,
kept you
yeah.
warm. I think it helped.
My puppies
Yes.
were very interested in the goats.
That's another thing. So, all right. Well, good. I think we can't.
It's a work
That's
in
why
progress.
I'm drawing you in to have this conversation now because we can't talk about these things, except in this public setting. So thank you for on the fly giving us an update on all that, and we'll keep an
most
eye.
of it had the coincidence of being the truth. So
Well, coincidentally, okay.
Imagine.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
No
Mr.
problem.
Barnes. And aside from that, I only have one other thing to address, which is thank you for the reimbursement. It was a significant out-of-pocket experience for me. I didn't want to get an attorney. I wanted to defend it myself, but Ms. Cohen said, it's in Tallahassee, it's not here. I highly recommend you hire an attorney just because of the location. I want to say it's been difficult because the accusations were, some of them just bizarre, but all of them were hurtful and I believe done for the purpose of retaliation or something like that. And I didn't want to ask for reimbursement, but I also didn't think it was fair for my family to pay for this either. So I want to thank you for handling it the way that you did, Lori. I thank you for your advice. I definitely recommend Bucky Mitchell. I kind of thought it was cool that I had an attorney named Bucky because it's kind of fun to say, and he was excellent. So anyways, it was an experience I wish I hadn't gone through, but I believe that it was done, to damage my reputation, to aggravate, to cause distress, to make me expend a lot of time and energy on something so negative. And Mr. Margolis filed it, and Mr. Novak filed kind of an overlapping complaint that they compiled into one. And it was 2.5 years of complying with records from my business, bank records, contracts, 2 trips to Tallahassee, and the stress involved in it. And I do, Mr. Margolis, the former mayor, was fined for a infraction at the state, and I think that was his motivation, was just kind of payback and to try to, make me suffer. And I don't want people to look at that like that's the sort of thing that you're signing up for with government. You really are. I think that all of us are doing this for the right reason, to serve the community. But in this case, Mr. Gerwig, my husband, who owns an engineering firm, is one of the best structural engineers in the state of Florida. He came to Florida to design. He came to this area to design the Australian Avenue Southern Boulevard interchange. He was the project engineer and the design engineer for that project. To accuse him of somehow getting me elected to help his business, it is nothing but a negative for him to have a wife who's a public official who also works for the firm. It's not been a benefit to my family, but I still think it's worthwhile because the community is is a fantastic place to live, and this is just a bump in the road. Hopefully, that all the municipalities will be through, because we're not the only ones. Talking to people at the state level, when that change was made in the coverage on it, we weren't the only ones. There were municipalities all over the state being hit with a lot of frivolous and ridiculous ethics complaints that were having to be defended. So anyways, I just wanted to say thank you, and Happy New Year, and I love being a grandma. So it's really fun. It adds lots of driving to my day to Parkland and back, but I'm just thankful that she's that close, because some people don't. Some people have to get on planes to see their grandchildren. So it's not so bad, but I'm wearing out the turnpike between here and there. So, and I'm happy to do that also. So with that, we are adjourned.